There you go.
I called Trader Joe's today and their kosher turkeys are in.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm going tomorrow.
I saw them on Monday.
Oh, did you name them?
We were just talking. You know, I did not. They looked like quintuplets, actually.
Did you leave one for me? Because I'm buying it tomorrow.
I left them all, actually, because I was just telling Dell and Barbara, I decided that we didn't need a whole turkey because it's just going to be the three of us this year. And Toby doesn't eat meat. And,
oh, well, there it goes. Yeah.
And Shia and we're fine with thighs, you know, so it's just fine.
Yeah, well, we're gonna be for Max is coming because he has no one. Remember Max? Max Benavides?
Benavides.
Benavides, yeah. So he's coming.
No, it's wonderful. Glad you guys are.
Yes, and my friend Marcia, who has no one. So there's four of us. So I will buy a small turkey. And if there's no small turkeys, I'll buy a big turkey.
Yeah, right. Hi, Ann. Good evening.
Good evening. Is Danny here? The other Danny?
I beg your pardon?
You know, there's another Danny. He often comes to your classes. Daniel.
He's not here tonight, I'm afraid.
No, he's probably at the Diwali.
Maybe.
Yeah, so I saw him there a minute ago.
I have to begin by telling you a story that relates to the Esau and Jacob story. I thought this was a classic, and it's a true story, right? How many of you know about the Warburg family? All right, so the most recent famous member of the Warburg family was Paul Warburg. He was the founding director of the U.S. Federal Reserve Bank during the Wilson administration.
A few years back.
The Warburgs, I mean, you know, German Jewish family, wealthy as all get out, and you know, very connected to the Jewish world. So this is a true story about A.B. Warburg, who at the age of 13 made a deal with his younger brother Max. Right? A.B. agreed to renounce his rights as the eldest son of a vast German Jewish banking dynasty in return for Max's agreement to buy A.B. any book he wished for the rest of his life. Okay? Max had no idea what he was getting into. A.B. became an art historian, and for cultural studies built up a library of 60,000 volumes. Max kept the end of his bargain and became the underwriter, unintentionally, of one of Europe's great research institutions, which eventually became known as the Warburg Institute. Right? There's also a connection in the family to the conservative movement, because the Jewish Theological Seminary has these gates in front of it, which are known as the Warburg Gates. Okay? Also, the Warburg Mansion became the site of the Jewish Museum in New York City.
Oh.
Right? So, right? Jacob and Esau still live.
But that had a happy ending.
I guess it did.
But why couldn't he buy his own books if he were going to inherit everything?
Well, I guess he decided that he would get something for the part of his family that he didn't want. I guess he didn't want to go into the banking business.
Yeah, but
which would probably have been expected of the oldest child. I mean, he was born in 1866. So he did this when he was 1879. And at age 13, he already decided he didn't want anything to do with the responsibilities of banking.
I mean, even though the similarities are striking, the end result is not the same because the biblical story does not quite have that happy ending.
That is correct. Although there is a happy ending eventually. Jacob and Esau do reunite and they don't kill each other.
True.
Oh, they don't kill each other. Well,
and by the standards of that time, that's a very happy ending.
Okay.
But later on, Esau becomes a powerful country.
So Esau is code language for Edom, right? Which then becomes code language for Rome. And then it becomes code language for Christianity. All of this in the rabbinic period.
Whoa, stop.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm really confused. So he became Christian, or his ancestors?
Esau did not become anything. We don't know that he had any religious inclinations whatsoever. He was a hunter.
He was a hunter.
Right. Not known for building altars and making sacrifices and stuff like that, right?
Actually, it's in Obadiah that the reference between Edom and Rome is made. And that was done at the sacking of Jerusalem.
Yes. It becomes, much more solidified in the rabbinic tradition, especially after Rome becomes Christian. So
it's about nations now, centuries later, not about the two boys.
Oh no.
No.
Ronnie.
Yes.
It's not about the two boys, it's about the nations that they became.
I'm a little confused because so Esau became Rome, which obviously is synonymous with Christianity.
Well, I can tell you why he became Rome.
Edom.
You see, Edom became Idumea, and the Maccabees conquered Idumea, and they all became Jews. And so Herod was one of those. You know King Herod?
Yes,
Herod the
Edomite.
He was.
Yes, I know King Herod. I'm still trying to figure out.
He was from Edom. Herod was from Edom. That's how the Roman association came in. Yeah. Because he helped Rome against Israel.
By the way, and you may enjoy this, there is a coded reference to Esau as well as to Ishmael in the song Lecha Dodi. I write about this in my book. I didn't make it up. It was clearly the author's intention. So one of the verses of Lecha Dodi says, Yamin usmol tifrotzi, right? Spread out to the right and to the left. Well, in Kabbalah, the Jews are in the middle because Jacob is in the middle. Abraham's on the right, but Abraham also had a non-Jewish son, right?
Ishmael,
who became the father of the Arab nations, and then eventually that becomes code language for Islam. Right? The left side in Kabbalah is associated with Isaac. Isaac also had one non-Jewish son, that's Esau, who becomes Edom, which then is associated with the Christians. So when he says, Yaminu smolti frotzi, break forth to the right and the left. It's like, it's a way of saying that in the time of the Messiah, and a lot of Lachadodi is about messianic times, in the time of the Messiah, both the people on the right and the people on the left will come together with us and join with us in worshiping the one God of Israel. Right? It's coded because, first of all, in Kabbalah, everything is code language. And secondly, because you couldn't say that kind of thing where this was written, right? You couldn't say publicly, oh, the Muslims will all convert to become us. Right?
And the Catholics.
Well, where they wrote this, it was written by Shlomo Alkabetz, who lived in Turkey and then went to Tzfat. I'm not clear which place he was in, but either way, there were a lot of Muslims around. And so you didn't say that kind of thing, not directly, but indirectly. The Kabbalists would totally have understood exactly what he meant when he said to the right and the left, break forth.
So how did it become welcoming the Sabbath Queen? I don't see the connection.
Oh, well, that's that's simple. I mean, it's for, we the Jews, we're the ones who welcome the Sabbath Queen,
Correct.
right? And the notion of welcoming the Sabbath Queen, that even goes back to the Talmud. That there were rabbis who went out to the fields on Friday late afternoon, to greet the Sabbath Queen, so to speak. Right? So that's an old tradition. Now in Tzfat, they would go out to the fields also, or at least many of them would. I don't know if Alkabetz did, but it was a Friday night song.
Why is Shabbat?
And Friday night, and there's a little bit of a messianic tinge to that too, because nothing bad is going to happen on Shabbat, right?
Why is the Shabbat a queen or a bride?
Because, the Midrash about the 7 days of the week,
Yes.
the first 6 days, they all have a partner, right? Shabbat doesn't have a partner. So God says, I will mate you up with the people of Israel. And that's how she became a bride. Is that a lovely Midrash?
Israel is the bridegroom and Shabbat is the bride?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's all in the chapter in my book on prayer and ritual in Jewish mysticism. So, you can all, steal the copy from the synagogue library and check it out.
You mean borrow, don't?
What is the title of the book?
It is a Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism reader.
That's the one we have?
And
yeah. No, we have
make
the book.
sure you
No,
get
that's not the one we
the
have.
green cover. Okay?
What's wrong with the other one?
Well, there is no other one. That's what's wrong with it. It just has this ugly green cover.
Okay. Rabbi Danny, is that the one that we bought when we took your Kabbalah class?
Well, if you bought a book, I hope that's it.
Okay, then we
I
have
really
it.
need the royalties, frankly.
Then you got it.
The
from
last
us.
royalty check I got was like $137. So
Better than zero.
well, I know, but you
But he spent
you
years
don't
and
write
years.
books like this to get rich. Let me tell you.
Let me tell you, I've written 80 books and I haven't gotten rich.
Have you published them?
Oh, yeah.
So here's how I would like to start tonight. I would like two of you to volunteer to play Jacob and Esau and just play out the scene the way you think it should be played.
I was already Pharaoh. I've done my job.
Yeah, but I know you did a wonderful Pharaoh. I figure I could get at least 2 volunteers for this.
Okay, sure.
All right, well, if you're the first to volunteer, you get to choose which one you want to be.
So I've got a choice between the black sheep and the white sheep.
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay, I'll go with Esau.
Okay.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
Okay, that's good.
You're the red.
I'm sorry, Dale, did I hear you volunteer?
I'm the black sheep.
The redhead.
Barbara, he's volunteering you.
No, he's not. He
I
said
know.
Ronnie is the redhead.
I know. But which makes sense for Esau.
That's
Although
true.
we don't know that he was a redhead. We just know that he was ruddy and red.
But his
Yeah.
name was Edom, and that's red.
Oh, well, yeah.
true. That's
In
very true.
Karashimo, Edom. That's why they called him Edom.
So who is my twin brother?
Well, I don't know. I haven't had a volunteer yet. So who's going to play Jacob? Okay, Anne, you're on.
Which
Oh,
scene are we doing?
gosh.
Here
Okay,
I am. I've got
So,
this nice
Anne,
red
you're
stew.
in. Let's just set the stage for this. You're cooking the soup, and your brother walks in. Take it away, Ronnie.
Hey. Ooh, that smells so good.
It is
Jacob,
good.
what are you making?
I'm making red lentil stew, and it's really good.
Oh my
I eat it
God.
all myself.
Ooh, I am so hungry.
What do you
What
give
would
me
it
for it?
take for you to give me some of your red lentil soup?
What are you going to give me for it?
Oh my goodness, I am famished. I've been out all day hunting, was not successful. I am so hungry. Tell you what, I will give you my birthright for
Done.
a bowl. Oh, easy sale.
Yep, you can have it. All yours.
Thank you.
Thank
Num,
you.
num, 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 num.
Well, I guess you didn't want your birthright. It's mine
You
now.
know, I'm hungry. I live in the moment. I'm hungry. It satisfied me. I'm not going to worry about the future.
Yeah, I got that.
So thank you, brother. Thank you
You're the-
very much. So I'm no longer hungry, and I will just thank you and go on with my life.
That's good. Have fun. Bye.
Bye.
See how easy that was? Yes. Now, what we didn't have was a third person to play narrator. So, to fill in a few little details, like, the last verse in the story. And let me just put this up on the screen for you.
Esau despised his
Oh,
birthright.
I have to, all right, I have to switch here and put it up. Texts. Okay, here it is. Okay. And okay, so now I can share with you the texts, and I actually have the link, if you want it, to the story that I told you about the Warburgs.
Oh,
All right. So here's the story. And Ronnie and Ann, you hit on all the essentials except for the last verse.
Esau despised his birthright.
Yeah, I mean, the New Jewish translation says, and Esau spurned the birthright. Either way, it makes the point that, whatever responsibilities or privileges there were with the birthright, they didn't seem to matter to him.
Esau.
To Esau.
Correct. Okay.
Yeah. Now, you did offer the birthright. In the story, Jacob suggests it.
Yeah.
Right. But either way, you get the key thing, I think, is that it just didn't matter to him. And, he's a grown-up. He's going out hunting. Right? He's not a little kid. He's not stupid. It's not that he doesn't know anything about the birthright. It's just not his thing. All right. And of course, there are, lots of midrashim which kind of question this story a little bit. So I found a source that puts together all these midrashim into one narrative.
Oh.
So we're going to see how this works out here. Okay. So the Midrash Hagadol tells the first part and gives one scenario about this. He says, it is not believable that someone would give another a bowl of lentils and say to him, sell me your birthright. And the other would do it. He says, there was a longer conversation. There's more than the Torah is literally telling you. Here's what happened. Esau entered and he found Jacob standing and cooking, and his eyes are tearing up from the smoke of the oven. And he says, what do you need all this trouble for? Every living thing eats what they find. And you're going to all this trouble to cook a bowl of lentils. Who wants a bowl of lentils anyway? I'm only here because I'm starving, right? I'll take anything. But, and Jacob says, if we act like other people, what shall we do on that day when the righteous will be rewarded? In other words, if we just eat whatever we find, what does that make us? Are we going to be the same as everybody else? And, Midrash Hagadol is a time when, Jews have already been around for close to 3,000 years. It's a fairly late Midrash, probably around the end of the, millennium, Common Era 1000 or so. So he says, is this what we're going to be? Is this what we Jews are going to be? And when the righteous will be rewarded, meaning in the world to come, what are they going to say about us? And so Esau said, is there a world to come? Is there really a world to come? No, it's like really questioning that. And the Midrash Lekach Tov takes it even a little farther. He says, why do I need to believe this thing?
Rabbi?
Yes, Ronnie.
I have a comment.
Please.
If Jacob is now going to be, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he is our forefather. Wouldn't he have shown compassion for his brother and just given his brother the lentils without any strings attached, being that he was supposed to be exemplifying doing mitzvot, helping those in need,
Well,
You
you
know,
have a very romantic view of the family of Abraham.
It's not like that.
The thing is,
Those people are not perfect.
Ronnie, the thing is, we are putting a we're putting a look back onto this action that took place in days where life was very, very different. I don't know what Jacob really truly believed. You're putting stuff into this that, because we're looking at it from the outside and in way ahead of history. But right, if we look at it in terms of the moment, these people are
he was very
questioning what's
selfish.
going on.
Yeah,
If-
it was.
That
Esau is
Jacob was
extremely
being very
selfish.
selfish to deny his
Ronnie, I mean,
brother.
his name means heel, right? He's a
That's-
heel.
He came out, yeah.
That's only an made up derivation. It really means something better than that. I forgot what.
No,
Well,
'cause
says
he
he was grabbing onto his brother's heel.
Yeah, I know it says that. But the Bible likes to make up derivations for people's names.
Yeah, well, could be, but that's the point they wanted to make. Jacob is kind of a heel in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of thing it is this to buy your brother's birthright for a bowl of soup?
and if you look
I
at,
understand for a batch of books.
but Rabbi,
Yes,
if we're supposed to, you talk about the forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we're supposed to emulate them. They're supposed to be our forefathers who have taught us how we are supposed to behave. And Jacob's behavior actually is quite alarming, selfish, and self-centered.
well,
Only he
if
got punished
you
for it
want
later on.
alarming, go back to the Akedah.
Okay, let's go back there.
Yeah, so Abraham's about to slaughter his own son.
Because he had true belief.
And there's other signs about Abraham, like being willing to pass off his wife as his sister.
Okay,
No.
but that was to save her.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That was
his
to
own
save
life.
him. Yes, Del.
Not only did Abraham pass off his wife, but Isaac
Isaac
passed off
did too.
Rebecca also.
Mhm.
Well, he learned from the father.
Right.
He
And,
should have learned not to do it.
and they both had problems with Abimelech.
Yes. Abimelech must wonder about this family.
Why did he fall for it twice?
Once was with Pharaoh, and the second time was with Abimelech.
Yeah, but then Isaac did Abimelech too. Abimelech should have known better by this time. He got fooled the first time.
Well, Abimelech with Isaac just took Isaac's word that this was his sister until Abimelech saw Isaac having fun with the sister.
He was having Misahek fun,
Yeah, misacheg. Yeah, that's
Oh,
that's the word that is used to describe what Ishmael is doing.
Yeah.
But it's not clear what it means. It could mean that he was actually making fun of his little brother. Could be he was just harmlessly playing with him, or it could mean he was abusing him.
Special kind of abuse.
After Sarah passed away, Abraham remarried, had a few more sons, and sent
Yes.
them all away.
hmm.
He was no great father.
It's a crazy family, isn't it? So,
We fit right in.
Ronnie, there
Yeah.
is the myth
Yes.
that the patriarchs are these people who are meant to be emulated. What
Yeah.
I think the Torah is telling us is that they were pretty typical in certain ways for their time, because all of the things that happened there, that's stuff that people really did. People did offer their children as sacrifices. People did abuse family members. Right? The point is, we're meant to learn from the mistakes
Jerry
of the
has
family
something
of
he
Abraham.
wants to say. Jerry, off camera, wants to say something.
Yes, Jerry.
What about the mother? Did she put him up to doing this?
You
Doing
mean
what?
Rebecca?
Yeah, it is true that Rebecca puts Jacob up to the ultimate swindle, which is the swindle of Isaac. You've heard of the binding of Isaac? This is
Right.
the swindle of Isaac, right?
No, I'm talking about who cooked, who got the porridge started. It wasn't him. I think there's somebody else in the background that was pulling the same thing.
No, Rebecca absolutely favored Jacob. No question.
Yes. And so that's why she sets up the deception, the
Yeah.
swindle of Isaac.
And
When she
I
was
think-
pregnant, she should have told her husband about the prophecy that the elder would serve the younger.
And would he have believed it?
No,
Okay,
I
I have
told him, well,
Yeah,
Isaac,
Barbara.
bothered by
Isaac
this.
was kind of a nondescript character in this whole thing. He never really came up with anything new. He just sort of, meandered on.
He
And
redug his father's wells.
yeah, because you have Abraham and Jacob, and Isaac was, they were the bookends to this. Isaac was just the carrying on of the tradition to get to the next generation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Some years ago, I gave a sermon, and I think it was in the chapel, but it might have been before any of you were there. And, dealing with the fact that Isaac is an extremely passive person, that he may actually have been mentally slow.
Ooh.
Well, if Isaac was mentally slow, then Rebecca had to run the family business.
Yes.
And at any rate, I believe that Rebecca was not standing outside Isaac's tent when Isaac sent Esau on the mission just by happenstance. I think that was arranged.
Could well have been.
he comforted him for the death of his mother. And that was the beginning and end of their relationship.
Rabbi, can I go back a few parshas?
Sure, we don't have a rule against that here.
Okay, because I'm now very confused.
There is a
Abraham.
rule against that.
Well, I'm confused. Okay.
We'll work it out.
Abraham was chosen by Hashem to be the father of the nations, of the Jews. If he had all these imperfections, why would God choose him? Because I was under the impression that Abraham was righteous and he honored justice and he did all the quote Jewish things.
Yes. So I'll offer my answer, but let me throw it open and see how the rest of you would answer it. Ann?
Well, all through the book of Kings, whenever he said so-and-so king did what was right in the eyes of Hashem, it was always that he was faithful and didn't worship any other gods. And it was never anything nice that he did to anybody. It was always, and he said he was wicked in the eyes of Hashem, it was because he had other gods. Well, Abraham didn't have
Yes.
any other gods.
Yeah, I mean, to be very blunt about it, the king was not a very nice guy, but he was a good king if he was faithful to God.
Meaning one God.
One God, the
This
God of Israel,
particular one.
right? And so I think what Ann is saying is that's what made Abraham righteous. He was
Okay.
faithful to the notion of the one God.
Of
Okay.
that particular one.
Yeah. Now that's kind of a limited form of righteousness. It's not what we're used to. But back then, maybe that was what had potential. Yeah, Del.
And let's remember, Moses was a murderer.
Well,
What did he say?
he was trying to defend his people against being beaten up.
Ah, but if that was the case, he wouldn't have gone and buried the Egyptian.
He knew he'd get in trouble. Of course he buried him.
You talking about Moses?
Yeah.
Oh,
Moses.
Yeah, Moses murdered an Egyptian who was beating up on a slave.
Correct.
He was just trying to protect the slave, and the guy died. So now he's got to hide it because he'll get in trouble. But it didn't work. Everybody knew. So then
And
he
the
had
word
to-
got around anyway.
Well, two people can't keep a secret.
Yeah, it
That's
seems
right.
to be.
The three can keep a
Especially
secret. Two of
Jewish
them are
people.
dead. What'd you say, Rabbi?
I said, especially Jewish people cannot keep secrets.
Okay.
Three can keep a secret if two of them are dead.
Okay, I'm
Is
gonna
there a
go back.
Yiddish proverb like that?
Probably. Okay, I'm gonna go back to what I
You think
learned
Moses
today.
should have killed the Jewish guy also?
Yeah, Ronnie.
Okay. I'm studying with a study partner, and we are way behind you because we're doing line by line. And my study partner said that intuitively, Abraham knew all the laws of kashrut. He knew basically all the halacha and followed it intuitively. And that, when the three visitors, angels, come to the tent, and this is very interesting, and Sarah is baking cakes. She's actually baking matzah because it's Passover, and they were observing Passover.
She
Even
also,
the holiday
Yeah.
had not,
It's very midrashic.
correct.
but if you look at the Bible, it says that he served them milk and then he served them meat.
Though, the laws of kashrut, the laws
Yeah,
of
he served them milk and meat.
no milk, but she was making cakes, which could be made.
This is because
Matzah.
we're going off into the realm of midrashim, and if you can find midrashim to actually support any particular argument that you want to make. If we're going to take literally the words of Torah, then you have to read what's there on the page.
Yes.
Yes, okay, I'm done.
Okay. So anybody else have an answer to the question, why did God choose Abraham? Yeah, Del.
My
Because
question is,
Abraham chose God.
I'm sorry?
Oh, that's good.
Abraham chose God.
Ah, it wasn't that God chose Abraham. It's that Abraham picked God.
Let Dad talk to him.
He probably talked to God a lot.
But God
So
talked
God
back.
talked back.
but then,
But Abraham was the only choice.
no, wait a minute. hold on.
So that's another answer that is often given. It's not that God chose Abraham. One answer that we haven't really heard, but it's one that I see every now and then. Abraham was picked by God, not because he was so righteous, but because he had the potential. And if he was faithful to God, he would eventually rise to his potential. The problem with that is that in the end, it looks as if he doesn't. Because even though he's willing to argue with God over Sodom, he doesn't argue with God when God says, take your son and sacrifice him on the mountain.
Well, that's because he had a vested interest in his own son.
Well, make excuses for him if you want, but still, it's
He did argue. He got him down to 10 righteous men.
But did he do
that's
that
but
for
that's with
Isaac?
Sodom.
No.
Saddam, yes.
But
Because
Not
it's
for
not,
Isaac.
but he didn't argue. when God asked him to sacrifice his son.
True. True.
So that still leaves us with a big problem.
Well, we could go to the Midrash where he was taken before King Nimrod and told to worship fire or whatever, and he wouldn't do it. So they threw him in the fire and he came out, not a scratch, not a single.
Yeah, and that is definitely a midrash.
Of course
Yes.
it is. That
Yeah.
was after the fact. They wanted to show he was a good guy, so they told this Midrash about it.
Right, right. Okay, so let me go back to our texts. So let's see what else they said in this conversation. Right? Jacob, Esau questions whether there's a world to come, and Jacob says, well, if there's no world to come, why do you need your birthright? Because in this family, the birthright is all about the continuity of the Jewish people. And there may not be justice in this world. You may not see the results of that in this world. But in the world to come, you will. But if there's no world to come, so what's the point of having your birthright? Okay. And this is also what, Abravanel says the firstborn takes his father's place, and his father is the one who passes down the faith. Okay. Sforno also has a comment here. He says, whoops, lost it. Says you won't be able to handle all the responsibilities of the birthright to serve God as befits the firstborn. In other words, Jacob is saying to Esau, come on, get real. You're not the religious one here. That's not you. And, you're not going to do that anyway. So what's the birthright really worth to you? And that's a question that, comes out of not the relationship between Jacob and Esau, but out of our tradition, because who are we? We're the ones who are trying to maintain the Jewish people. Right? We're the ones who are trying to maintain Jewish values and Jewish practices and build Jewish community for another generation and another after that, and so on. Right? If you don't care about that, then you're not going to be a leader in the community. So for Esau, what's the point of being the firstborn? Next, Esau said, and you could precede this by saying, Esau said, you're right. You're right. I didn't choose to follow the way of my fathers whose glory was in sitting at home. Right? It's like, the Midrash pictures Jacob as studying Torah at the tents of his ancestors Shem and Aver. Right? And it's like, well, that's not me. They sit at home, they do whatever they do. And as Rashbam puts it, I go out every day to hunt wild animals in the forest. My life is in danger. And so, as Abravanel says, what's the point of, what's in it for me to be the firstborn? Nothing. It's not my value system. It's not who I am. And so, Rashi pictures Jacob as saying, sell me your birthright today. Only today is certain, yesterday is gone, and we don't know what tomorrow will bring. Now, that's Jacob speaking to Esau, who lives for today. Only today is certain, and if you don't believe in the world to come, we don't know what tomorrow will bring. And so Esau began to curse, saying, Why do I need the birthright? In other words, you're right. You're right. This is not for me. So he sold it to him. He ate and drank and he got up and went away. And Esau spurned the birthright. As Abravanel says, he didn't agree to the sale just because he was hungry. Because afterwards he didn't regret it. He ate and drank, and then right afterwards it says Esau spurned the birthright. In other words, he didn't, it wasn't about the hunger. It wasn't because he was getting something. It was because what he was trading off was worthless to him.
Wow.
It absolutely could not have been about any kind of hunger.
Speak up a little bit more, Del.
It absolutely could not have been about hunger, because Isaac had a bunch of sheep and goats and other animals. If Isaac was at the point of starvation, he'd have just gone out and killed one of those and had food.
This is true.
Hmm.
Makes sense. So, he's starving like, someone who comes home from work, who ate lunch, but he comes home from work at 5:30 and says, I'm starving. What's for supper? That's Esau starving.
Right. Or at worst, each one of us at the end of Yom Kippur.
All right, boy, I'm starved. Let's eat. Yeah.
We're not going to collapse in the parking lot before we get to somewhere to get food.
Right. Yeah. Collapsing in the parking lot would defeat the point. No, he's not starving. He's hungry, but that's not the point.
And it smells good.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the point is he lives for the moment, and the birthright is not what that's about.
The will o' the wisp.
So
guess. Why did he trade? Why did he? Okay, never mind.
It was meaningless to him.
Right, I got that.
Yeah, it was no more than a bowl of soup. So, the frightening thing, of course, is we have a lot of people, in the next generation for whom Judaism is not worth more than a bowl of soup.
No, they're going to all these schools where they're being taught that Israel doesn't deserve to exist because they're so evil.
Well,
I
think that if kids came to a college campus with the attitude that being Jewish was meaningful, that, and they knew something about the history of the state of Israel, that would not be so threatening to them. It's the ones who don't have that I worry about more.
Chabad gets them.
I'm sorry? Chabad?
Yeah.
Well,
Some of them
maybe.
don't go there.
Somebody better.
Rabbi, don't be extremely disheartened. How many Americans have no clue whatsoever about American history 50 years ago?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
No.
Vietnam.
Yeah, people don't know anything about Vietnam. They don't know what the civil rights movement was about or how it happened. They may celebrate Martin Luther King Day, but they don't even know who the guy was. Right.
Right.
So there's, you're right. We have a problem with America also.
They don't teach it in the schools anymore. They don't teach the three branches of government.
I think that the schools make a real effort to teach. I'm not sure that everybody is ready to learn. what there is to
Just
teach.
pass them
And
off
I have to
the
say,
grade.
I mean, look, the problem with school is that it is wasted on the young, right? When I was in when I was in middle school, they didn't call it middle school then, but when I was 6th grade, 7th grade, I took state history, Oklahoma state history, all right? It was a requirement, right? What do I remember from 6th and 7th grade state history? Well, not much. And maybe it wasn't the best taught subject, but it wasn't that important to me. And maybe there was a part of me that already knew I was going to get out of Oklahoma at the first shot.
Well, we were proudly taught Texas history, and I still remember a lot of it.
Well, that's because you have a mind like a steel trap, man.
But
What?
to understand history truly is to live it.
Yeah,
Having
and the young
Vietnam.
people, like when I was a kid, I hadn't lived any.
I lived
Did you learn to read and write?
through the civil rights. I lived through Sputnik. I lived through all these things. I lived through Armstrong landing on the moon, which
Yes.
gave, at the time, shivers. Kids today don't get it. They don't get it. It's not meaningful for them, to them, because they've never lived it. Now, going back in another 20 years, talking to the youth of today, they will remember COVID. Because
They'll
lived it.
remember they lived through it.
Right.
No,
But
it's not just about history. They don't even know how to read, much
Well-
less write. I'm talking
Well,
about the alphabet.
it's true that there are a lot of kids who are not reading very well.
okay,
We know
well,
that.
I'm talking about to understand history. No, I take it back because I did not live through World War II, but I feel that I understand World War II because I have been to the battlefields. I understand the
Yeah,
whole.
but the other thing, Ronnie, is Jews, even if they didn't live through World War II, if we know something about the Holocaust,
Yeah.
we know a lot about World War II.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, Dell.
When I was in high school, I had a really good American history teacher. And I learned American history from him. I had a crappy world history teacher, and I didn't learn anything from him.
Uh-huh. Well,
Teacher can only do so much for a
I
kid who can't
learned
read.
American history, not in high school, but in my freshman year at Rice, because Frank Vandiver taught the course.
Mm.
Barbara, you remember Frank Vandiver?
Yes.
Yeah. He was a professor. I mean, he was acting president when I arrived there. But as a professor, you didn't forget him. We had a few people like that at Rice. Okay. My last question for today. Are there aspects of Esau's personality which lead him to scorn the birthright?
Definitely, yes.
He lived for today.
Lives for today.
Lives for today.
He's not interested in anything but his hunting and his self pleasures.
He loves the outdoors. And none of that, you don't need a birthright for that.
Right. So, I think this is an example of Judaism taking a position against someone who doesn't have the right characteristics. And even though he's the oldest, Scripture finds a way to sideline him. Right? It's like we don't like, privilege without responsibility. Esau's not that kind of responsible. He may be a responsible hunter. He may be a very gifted hunter,
Bless you.
Thank you.
But he's not automatically entitled to status, and certainly not spiritual status. Yes, Ann.
The way the scripture is written, it seems very sympathetic to his sorrow at not being given the birthright. I mean,
That's true.
the blessing. He really
That's
wants
true.
it.
It's really
And the writing is
heart-wrenching
very
to look at Esau cry and beg his father, have you not got a blessing for me too?
bless me
I
too.
mean, the guy loves his father. So give him that. There are a lot of different ways to love. But what was the way that this family needed in order to preserve what was sacred about it? So yes, you know, Esau, it's you know, it just tears at you a little bit to hear him plead with his father after this has happened. But
And poor
in the
Isaac,
end,
who-
maybe even Isaac understood why this had to happen. All right, we will have class again in 2 weeks.
what are you
Thank
doing
you all
for
very
Thanksgiving?
much.
Are you going to have a turkey?
We're going to have turkey thighs. We had this discussion before you got on, Ann.
Oh, well,
Sorry.
I was at the Diwali celebration.
Yes. All right.
Good. Trader Joe's.
Yes.
I love Trader Joe's.
Shabbat shalom, everybody.
Shabbat shalom.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Shabbos,
Oh,
good
Rabbi,
Shabbos, good Yontif.
thank you, thank you.